The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with light. 1,000 different species sat in their seats, arranged in circles that rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. This was Nexus Prime, the heart of galactic civilization, where every major decision had been made for the last 50,000 years. Ambassador Vel Thrax of the Rykon Dominion walked to the center of the chamber. He was tall, covered in dark scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like hot coals. His people were conquerors. They had built an empire across 300 star systems, and today they wanted one more. Honored members of the council, Velthrax said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The Rykon Dominion requests permission to annex the Sol system. A holographic map appeared above him, showing a small yellow star at the very edge of the galaxy. It was far from everything important, sitting alone in a quiet corner of space that nobody cared about. This system has one planet capable of supporting life, Velthrax continued. It is home to a primitive species called humans. They have only recently discovered space travel. Their technology is crude. Their lifespans are short. They live for less than 100 years and spend most of that time fighting among themselves. Laughter rippled through the chamber. 100-year lifespan was nothing. Some species in the council lived for thousands of years. The idea of creatures who died so quickly trying to build a civilization seemed almost sad. The Sol system contains valuable minerals, Velthrax said. Our mining operations would benefit greatly from its resources. The humans themselves pose no threat. They are soft-bodied, weak, and lack any significant military capability. We estimate the annexation will take no more than 3 standard days. The council members began to murmur among themselves. This seemed like a simple matter. The Rykon had annexed many systems before. The process was always the same. They arrived with their warships, demanded surrender, and either received it or took what they wanted by force. Either way, the result was the same. But then an ancient voice spoke from the highest seats. I must object. Everyone turned to look. Elder Counselor Mavis was rising from her place. She was Shivari, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Her body was thin and pale, almost translucent, and her eyes held the weight of 3,000 years of memory. The Shivari rarely spoke in council meetings. When they did, wise beings listened. The Sol system should not be touched, Mavis said. I move to deny the Rykon petition. Velthrax's eyes narrowed. On what grounds, Elder? Mavis raised her hand, and a small crystal floated up from beneath her robes. It was old beyond measure, covered in symbols that no living species could read. This archive predates our council by 50,000 years. It was left by the precursors. The chamber went silent. The precursors were legends. They had built the hyperspace lanes that connected the galaxy. They had created wonders that modern science could not explain. And then, without warning, they had vanished, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. The precursors left many records, Mavis said. Most are damaged or impossible to understand. But this one is clear. It contains a warning about the Sol system, about humans. She activated the crystal, and words appeared in the air above the council, translated into every language simultaneously. When the children of Sol reach beyond their cradle, do not wake them to war. Do not corner them. Do not threaten what they love. They are not like us. They are not like anything. Let them sleep. Let them dream. Or learn why we chose to leave. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Velthrax laughed. It was a harsh sound, full of contempt. This is your objection? A fairy tale from a dead civilization? The precursors wrote many things. They also wrote about creatures that ate stars and gods that lived between dimensions. Are we to believe all their stories? Other council members began to laugh as well. The fear that had briefly touched the chamber faded away, replaced by amusement. The humans have no fleet, Velthrax said. They have no weapons that could scratch our armor. They are divided into hundreds of small nations that cannot agree on anything. They spend more time fighting each other than exploring space. These are not the terrifying monsters of ancient legend. They are primitives who have barely left their own planet. The precursors were not fools, Mavis said quietly. They ruled this galaxy for millions of years. They understood things we cannot imagine. If they feared something, we should ask why. They feared nothing, Velthrax replied. They are gone, dust and memory. Perhaps they destroyed themselves with their own foolishness. Perhaps they simply grew old and died. But they are not here to guide us, and we will not be ruled by the superstitions of ghosts. The council chairman, a massive creature with a body like flowing mercury, raised his appendage for attention. We will vote. All in favor of granting the recon petition to annex the Sol system? Lights began to glow across the chamber as council members registered their votes. Green for yes, red for no. The chamber turned green. 847 votes in favor, 3 against. Only the Shivari and 2 minor species had voted no. Everyone else saw no reason to protect a worthless system filled with primitive creatures who would probably welcome the stability of recon rule. The petition is granted, the chairman announced. The Rykon Dominion may proceed with annexation of the Sol system. Velthrax bowed deeply, his scales glittering in the light. The Dominion thanks the Council for its wisdom. As the chamber began to empty, Mavis remained in her seat. She watched the Rykon ambassador leave, surrounded by his advisors, already discussing which admiral would lead the conquest fleet. One of her aides approached her. Elder, what should we do? Mavis was quiet for a long time. Then she stood, her ancient bones creaking with the effort. Begin evacuating our colonies from that region of space, and she said, quietly, do not tell anyone why. Elder, is it truly that serious? Mavis looked at the holographic map, still floating in the center of the empty chamber. The Sol system blinked like a tiny yellow eye. The precursors built wonders we cannot comprehend, she said. They lived for millions of years. They understood the universe better than any species before or since. And they were afraid of humans. She turned to leave. I do not know what humans are, but I know this. If the precursors chose to leave rather than face them, then we should not be here when the recon wake them up. 3 weeks later, a fleet of 200 recon warships entered the Sol system, weapons armed and ready. The humans saw them coming, and for the first time in their history, they stopped fighting each other. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and looked at the blue planet below. It was beautiful, he admitted. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds. A perfect world, wasted on primitive creatures who had done nothing with it. His fleet of 200 warships hung in orbit around Earth like a crown of death. Any one of these vessels could reduce a continent to ash. Together, they represented more firepower than humans had produced in their entire history. Open a channel, Kethvar ordered. All frequencies. His communications officer obeyed, and Kethvar spoke to a planet. People of Earth, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Recon Dominion. Your system now belongs to us. You will surrender unconditionally within 1 planetary rotation. Your governments will dissolve. Your military forces will disarm. Your people will serve the Dominion as workers and laborers. Resist, and your cities will burn. He ended the transmission and waited. On previous conquests, this moment always brought panic. Transmissions would flood in from terrified leaders, begging for mercy, offering anything to survive. But from Earth, there was only silence. 1 hour passed, then 2. Finally, a transmission came. A single human appeared on the screen. She was female, middle-aged, with tired eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. Admiral Kethvar, she said calmly, I am Secretary General Amara Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Council. We have received your message. We need to discuss this with our people. Please stand by. The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the blank screen. Please stand by? He turned to his officers. Did she just ask us to wait? No one had ever responded to a Rykon ultimatum with a polite request for patience. It was so strange that Kethvar did not know how to react. He decided to wait. Perhaps the humans were simply too foolish to understand their situation. Hours passed. On Earth, something was happening. Kethvar's sensors detected massive movement across the planet. Aircraft filled the skies. Ships crossed the oceans. Broadcasts erupted in every language, carrying the same message over and over. Humanity had learned it was not alone in the universe, and instead of panicking, they were organizing. Factories that had been producing cars began producing weapons. Scientists who had been competing against each other started working together. Governments that had been enemies for generations signed treaties in hours. Millions of ordinary people volunteered to fight, to work, to do whatever was needed. Kethvar watched this with growing confusion. What are they doing? It appears they are preparing for war, Admiral, his tactical officer said. War? Kethvar laughed. With what? Their chemical rockets? Their primitive satellites? They have nothing that can hurt us. When one planetary rotation ended, Kethvar opened a channel again. Your time has expired. Surrender now, or face the consequences. Secretary General Okonkwo appeared on the screen again. She looked even more tired than before, but her voice was steady. Admiral, we have consulted with our people, all 8 billion of them. She paused. We will not surrender. Kethvar felt his scales tighten with anger. You cannot be serious. You have no chance of victory. We will destroy everything you have ever built. Perhaps, Mokonkwo said, but we will not kneel. The transmission ended. Kethvar's claws dug into his command chair. He had conquered 23 worlds. He had never been refused before. These creatures, these short-lived primitives, dared to defy him. Target the coastal city on the eastern continent, he ordered, the one called Mumbai. Show them what refusal costs. His weapons officer hesitated. Admiral, that city has over 20 million inhabitants. Good. The lesson will be clearer. The orbital strike lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, 2.3 million humans were dead. The city was a crater of glass and fire. Smoke rose into the atmosphere and could be seen from space. Kethvar smiled. Now they would understand. Now they would beg. But the transmission that came was not begging. Every frequency from Earth carried the same message, the same words, the same voice, repeated by billions of humans in unity. You have made your choice. Now witness ours. What happened next defied everything Kethvar knew about war. Within 3 days, the first Rykon ship was destroyed. It was not attacked by a warship. It was hit by a mining vessel, an ugly human craft designed for pulling rocks from asteroids. The humans had strapped nuclear weapons to it and flown it directly into the Rykon destroyer. The pilot did not try to escape. 4 more ships fell in the first week. The humans used everything they had. They launched satellites filled with metal fragments at Rykon vessels. They sent shuttles loaded with explosives on collision courses. Pilots flew suicide missions without hesitation, without fear, singing songs as they died. Kethvar could not understand it. Every species he had conquered valued survival above all else. When defeat was certain, they surrendered. It was logical. It was reasonable. Why die for nothing? But humans did not seem to think they were dying for nothing. A captured human pilot was brought before Kethvar. The man was injured, bleeding from a wound on his head, but he was smiling. Why do you fight? Kethvar demanded. You cannot win. We have 200 ships. You have destroyed only 14. The mathematics are clear. The pilot laughed. It was a strange sound, full of something Kethvar did not recognize. You killed Mumbai, he said. My sister lived there. Her children lived there. His smile faded into something cold. I don't care about your mathematics. I care about hurting you. And I did. Before you caught me, I rammed my ship into your supply vessel. 100 of your soldiers are breathing vacuum right now. You died for nothing, Kethvar said. Your sister is still dead. I didn't die for nothing, the pilot said. I died for everyone who comes after me. I died so you would learn something important. He leaned forward, blood dripping from his face. We don't stop. No matter what you do, no matter how many you kill, we will keep coming, and we will make you pay for every single life. He was executed, of course, but his words stayed with Kethvar. By the end of the month, Kethvar had sent a request to the Dominion for reinforcements. Not because he was losing the war. He was winning, slowly, painfully. But something was wrong. The humans were not breaking. Every conquered species had a breaking point. A moment when the death toll became too high, when the suffering became too great, when survival became more important than pride. Kethvar had seen it dozens of times. But 3 months into the war, the humans showed no signs of reaching that point. If anything, they were fighting harder. News of the war had spread across the galaxy. Other species watched with confused fascination as tiny human ships threw themselves against Rykon battlecruisers. They watched humans refuse surrender over and over, even when their cities burned and their people died by millions. On the Galactic Council, whispers began to spread, and in her quiet chambers, Elder Mavis read the reports with ancient eyes. "They tried to warn you," she said to no one. "The precursors, who lived for millions of years, who built wonders we cannot comprehend. They were afraid of these creatures, and you thought you knew better." She looked at her star maps and began planning for a future without the Recon Dominion. 18 months into the war, the Recon Dominion had committed 2,000 warships to the conquest of the Sol system. This was 10 times the force they normally use to conquer a species. Their military analysts had predicted victory within 6 months. They were wrong. The humans had lost 30 million people. Their cities lay in ruins. Their fleets were shattered again and again. By any reasonable measure, they should have surrendered long ago. Instead, they built new ships. They trained new soldiers. They found new ways to kill Recon. High Commander Zethral stood before the Dominion's War Council, his scales pale with stress. The holographic display behind him showed the casualty reports. "We have lost 847 vessels," he said. "Over 200,000 Rykon soldiers are dead. Our supply lines are under constant attack, and the humans show no signs of stopping." The War Council stared at him in disbelief. The Rykon had built their empire on the simple truth that overwhelming force led to quick victory. Species saw the size of the Rykon fleet, calculated their chances, and surrendered. It was efficient. It was logical. Humans did not appear to understand logic. "They strap faster than light drives to asteroids," Zethral continued. "They crash them into our convoys. They attack supply ships. They target our wounded. When we capture their soldiers, they fight until death. When we corner their civilians, they blow themselves up rather than surrender." "This is madness," one council member said. "What do they hope to achieve?" "I do not think they care about achieving anything," Zethral replied. "I think they simply want to hurt us." The Dominion had captured many human prisoners over the months. The interrogations had become famous among Rykon intelligence officers, not for the information they provided, but for the questions they raised. A recording played before the War Council. It showed a Rykon interrogator standing over a human woman. She was a commander, captured when her ship was destroyed. Her face was burned, her arm broken, but her eyes were steady. "Tell us your military plans," the interrogator demanded. The woman laughed. "I don't know the plans. Nobody tells me the plans. I just know my job." "And what is your job?" "To kill as many of you as possible before I die." The interrogator leaned closer. "We have studied your species. Every civilization has a threshold, a number of deaths they will accept before they give up. What is your threshold? When will humans surrender?" The woman was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We don't have one." "Explain." "You've killed 30 million of us. We have 8 billion more, and every single one of them will fight you until their hearts stop beating. Not because we think we can win, because surrender isn't something we do." She coughed, blood on her lips. "You could burn our planet to glass. You could hunt down every human in the galaxy, and the last one alive would spend their final breath trying to hurt you. That's not strategy. That's not calculation. That's just who we are." The recording ended. The War Council sat in stunned silence. "She is lying," someone said. "She must be. No species can be so irrational." "We have interrogated thousands of humans," Zethral said. "They all say the same thing, in different words with different levels of intelligence, but the same message." He paused. "They do not calculate victory. They do not measure acceptable losses. They simply refuse to stop." The galaxy had begun to notice. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council received daily reports from the war zone. Other species watched with growing unease as the mighty Recon Dominion struggled against creatures that had been dismissed as primitives. The numbers did not make sense. Humanity had lost 100 ships for every Rykon vessel they destroyed. Their technology was generations behind. Their bodies were fragile, their lives short. By every measure that mattered, they should have been crushed. But they weren't being crushed. They were adapting. Human scientists studied every piece of recon technology they captured. Within months, they were building their own versions. They were not as good as the originals, but they worked, and they improved with terrifying speed. How is this possible? The council members asked each other. How can a species with 100-year lifespans advance so quickly? The answer came from an unexpected source. A Zakari philosopher, known for his studies of primitive cultures, published a paper that spread across the galaxy. The humans call it mortality awareness, he wrote. They know their lives are short. They have known it since they first developed thought, and this knowledge drives them in ways we cannot understand. They do not have time to wait. They do not have time to be careful. They do not have time to accept defeat. Every human lives with the knowledge that their existence is brief, and this makes them desperate in a way that longer-lived species cannot comprehend. Other species see 100 years of war and think of it as a temporary inconvenience. Humans see it as a lifetime. They will spend their entire existence fighting if they must because, to them, that is what existence is for. To fight, to love, to build, to protect, and to die for what matters. The paper was read by millions. It did not comfort them. On Earth, things were changing. The first generation of children born during the war was growing up. They had never known peace. They had never known a sky without Rykon warships. They learned to fight as soon as they learned to walk. And in the dark corners of space, something new was happening. Other species were watching the humans fight, species that had been conquered by the Recon long ago. Species that had surrendered and served and accepted their place in the Dominion's empire. They were remembering what resistance looked like. Small rebellions began to break out on Rykon colony worlds. Nothing major at first. A sabotage factory here, an assassinated governor there. But the pattern was clear. Humanity was not just fighting a war, they were becoming a symbol. Elder Mavis addressed the Galactic Council as the war entered its second year. I warned you, she said, her ancient voice filling the chamber. I showed you the precursor archive. You laughed at me. You called it superstition. She gestured at the war reports floating in the air around her. The Rykon have committed 10 times the force they used to conquer the Javeth Empire, 20 times what they used to subjugate the Morkai. And they are losing. The humans are losing more, someone protested. Are they? Mavis asked. What is a loss to creatures who do not count their dead the way we do? They have lost 30 million. They have 8 billion remaining. They have lost 90% of their fleet. They build more. They have lost cities, continents, hope itself, and still they fight. She turned to face the council directly. The precursors ruled this galaxy for millions of years. They built the hyperspace lanes. They created wonders we cannot imagine, and they were afraid of humans. They told us to let them sleep. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You woke them up. And now you will see what happens when humans have something to fight for. The council had no answer. And on Earth, a young general looked at the star maps and began planning something that had never been done before. Humanity was not going to just survive this war, they were going to win it. In the third year of the war, the impossible happened. Humans went on the offensive. Nobody had predicted this. The Rykon had expected a long siege, a slow grinding down of human resistance until nothing remained. They had prepared for years of bombardment, of hunting down survivors, of crushing the last pockets of defiance. They had not prepared for human warships appearing in their own space. The first attack came at the mining colony of Rethkal. A small fleet of human vessels dropped out of hyperspace without warning. The Rykon garrison barely had time to raise shields before the attack began. It was over in 4 hours. The garrison was destroyed. The human ships did not stay to occupy the colony. Instead, they broadcast a message to the slaves who worked in the mines. We are humans from Earth. The Rykon invaded our home. They killed our people. Now we are taking the war to them. The broadcast continued. You do not have to serve them anymore. Fight back, resist, sabotage, and know this, you are not alone. We will return. Then the human ships vanished into hyperspace. The message spread across the galaxy. Other slave species heard it, species that had served the Recon for centuries, who had forgotten what freedom meant, who had been taught that resistance was impossible. They began to remember. Small rebellions that had started as whispers became fires. Factory workers destroyed machinery. Miners collapsed tunnels. Servants poisoned their masters. Across the Dominion, the systems that had run smoothly for 10,000 years began to break down. And everywhere the rebels went, they carried a new word with them. A human word: hope. The Recon High Command met an emergency session. Supreme Leader Vethkor, the ancient ruler of the Dominion, looked at the reports with disbelief. How did they build a fleet? He demanded. We destroyed their shipyards. We bombed their factories. Where did these ships come from? They rebuilt, Supreme Leader, his advisor said quietly. Underground, in asteroids, in places we never thought to look, and they used our own technology against us. Our technology? They captured pieces of our ships. They studied them. They learned how they worked. The advisor paused. They improved them. Vethkor's scales turned pale. That is not possible. Reverse engineering our technology would take decades, centuries. For other species, yes, but humans, the advisor searched for words. They do not wait. They do not follow the normal path of development. They take shortcuts. They make mistakes. They accept failure, and they learn from it faster than anything we have ever seen. The reports continued. Human ships were appearing throughout Rykon space. They never stayed to conquer. They attacked, they destroyed, they freed slaves, and they vanished. And wherever they went, rebellion followed. Vethkor made a decision. We will end this, completely. He ordered the construction of a weapon that had been forbidden for millennia. A stellar ignition device. A bomb capable of turning a star into a supernova. One weapon that could destroy the entire Sol system in an instant. 8 billion humans, gone in a flash of light. When the weapon was ready, Vethkor broadcast his ultimatum to the galaxy. People of Earth, your war is over. We have constructed a device that will destroy your star. Your planet will be vaporized. Every human in the Sol system will die. You have one chance to prevent this. Surrender unconditionally. Lay down your weapons. Accept Rykon rule, or die. The galaxy held its breath. Everyone expected surrender now. The humans had fought bravely, but this was different. This was extinction. No species could face the death of their entire world and refuse to yield. The human response came 12 hours later. General Marcus Chen appeared on every screen in the galaxy. He was old, his hair gray, his face covered in scars from 3 years of war. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. You have threatened to kill our world, he said. Our home, the only place we have ever known. 8 billion lives, our children, our parents, everyone we have ever loved. He paused and the galaxy waited. Do it. Silence, shock, confusion. Do it, Chen repeated. Burn our world, turn our sun into a grave marker, and then spend the rest of your existence looking over your shoulder. His voice grew harder. Because the survivors will scatter across this galaxy like seeds in the wind. We have ships. We have people on colonies you do not know about. We have hidden ourselves among species you think you control. And we will never, ever stop. We will hide among your slaves, your servants, your forgotten peoples. We will teach them what we know. We will give them our fury. And one day, maybe 100 years from now, maybe 1,000, your children will wake up to find the galaxy on fire. He leaned forward, his eyes burning into the camera. Not because they wronged us, because you did. We do not surrender. We do not forget. And we do not stop. Ever. Kill us all, and our ghosts will haunt you forever. The transmission ended. On the Rykon homeworld, Supreme Leader Vethkor stared at the blank screen. His claws trembled. He had expected fear. He had expected begging. He had expected surrender. He had not expected this. For the first time in 10,000 years of rule, the Rykon did not know what to do. They could destroy Earth. They had the weapon. They had the power. But Chen's words echoed in their minds. The humans would scatter. They would hide. They would teach others their way of war, their refusal to surrender, their endless, burning defiance. The Rykon had built their empire on fear. But what happened when the people you threatened were not afraid to die? On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. We must intervene, Elder Mavis declared. Not to save the humans, to save the Rykon. The chamber erupted in confusion. Save the Rykon? They started this war. Yes, Mavis agreed. And now they face extinction because of it. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. The humans will never stop hunting them. Never. Even if it takes 1,000 years. She looked around the chamber. Is that what we want? A galaxy haunted by vengeful humans for eternity? The vote was unprecedented. For the first time in Council history, the galactic powers agreed to intervene in an active war. Not to stop humanity, to offer the Rykon a way out. Because the galaxy had finally understood something that the precursors had known 50,000 years ago. Humanity could not be conquered. They could not be intimidated. They could not be reasoned with when someone threatened what they loved. The only way to survive humans was to never become their enemy in the first place. And for the Recon Dominion, it was far, far too late for that. The war ended not with a final battle, but with something that confused the galaxy far more than any weapon. Mercy. When human forces finally reached the Recon homeworld, everyone expected revenge. The humans had lost 50 million people. Their cities had been burned. Their children had been killed. For 3 years, the Rykon had tried to exterminate them with every weapon they had. Now humans stood over the Rykon capital. Their weapons pointed at a civilization that had caused them unimaginable suffering, and they did not fire. General Chen, now the commander of all human forces, broadcast his message to the conquered planet. People of the Rykon Dominion, your military is defeated, your government has surrendered, we have won. He paused and the galaxy waited for the killing to begin. We will not destroy your cities. We will not enslave your people. We will not burn your world to glass as you burned ours. Confusion spread across the Recon planet. This was not how conquest worked. This was not how war ended. We will establish tribunals, Chen continued. Those who ordered war crimes will face justice. Those who followed orders will be judged fairly. Those who protected civilians, even our civilians, will be honored. For everyone else, there will be food, medical care, shelter. We will help you rebuild what we had to destroy, not because you deserve it, but because we are not you. The occupation that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human soldiers patrolled Recon streets, but they did not terrorize the population. They distributed supplies. They repaired infrastructure. They played with Rykon children who had been taught to see them as monsters. The galaxy could not understand. 10 years later, Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the Galactic Council. She was the first human to address this body as an equal, not a curiosity, not a threat, but a member of galactic civilization. The chamber was full. Every species wanted to see this moment. The primitives who had defied the mighty Recon, who had fought the impossible war and won, who had shown mercy when they had every right to demand blood. You are confused, Chen Wei said, her voice calm and clear. I can see it in your faces, your body language, whatever means you use to express emotion. You expected us to be like you, to conquer, to dominate, to take revenge for what was done to us. She smiled. It was a gentle expression, but there was iron beneath it. Let me tell you who we are. She walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic image of Earth floated in the air. We are humans. We live for less than 100 years. In that time, we love with a fury that you cannot imagine. We protect what we love with everything we have. And when someone threatens what we love, we become something that even we do not fully understand. The Recon thought our short lives made us weak. They were wrong. Our short lives make us desperate, make us passionate, make us willing to spend every moment we have fighting for what matters. She turned to face the assembled species. You have seen what we can do in war. Now let me tell you what we can do in peace. Images appeared around her. Human doctors treating alien patients. Human engineers building bridges on foreign worlds. Human teachers sharing knowledge with species that had once feared them. We did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought because you gave us no choice. Because the Rykon killed our children and burned our cities and called us animals. Her voice hardened. Yes, we are animals. We are apes who climbed down from trees and taught ourselves to split atoms and walk on moons. We are fragile and frightened, and we live for only a heartbeat compared to most of you. But in that heartbeat, we love, we create, we dream, and we refuse to give up. She turned to face Elder Mavis, who sat in her ancient seat, watching with eyes that had seen 3,000 years. Your precursors left a warning about us. They told you to let us sleep, but they were wrong about one thing. Chenwei smiled. We were never asleep. We were just dreaming of the stars. She spread her arms, addressing the entire council. Now we are awake, and we are not here to conquer you. We are not here to rule you. We are here to show you something that the precursors forgot. The measure of a species is not how much fear they inspire. It is not how many worlds they conquer or how many wars they win. The measure of a species is how much hope they create, how many lives they improve, how many others they lift up alongside themselves. We have seen the worst of what intelligent life can do. We have experienced cruelty that would break most species, and we have chosen to respond with something else. Not weakness, never weakness. We will fight to the last breath if we must, but fighting is not our purpose. It is just something we do when we have no other choice. Our purpose is to build, to create, to connect, to show every species in this galaxy that they do not have to be afraid, that they do not have to be alone, that together we can be so much more than we are apart. The chamber was silent. Then Elder Mavis rose from her seat. For the first time in centuries, she walked down to the central floor, her ancient body moving with difficulty but determination. She stood before Chen Wei, looking up at the human ambassador with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. The precursors were not fools, Mavis said. They ruled this galaxy for millions of years. They understood things we cannot imagine, and they chose to leave. She reached out and took Chen Wei's hand in her own. I believe I finally understand why. They were not running from you. They were making room. The archive was updated that day. A new entry was added, the first in 50,000 years. It was written in human language, translated into every tongue in the galaxy. If you find these words, know this. We were not the strongest, or the fastest, or the oldest, but we were stubborn, we were kind, and we never ever gave up. Be like us. The universe is cold and dark and full of things that want to hurt you. But you are not alone. You never were. Look to the stars. We will find you, and we will face the darkness together. In the gardens of the council, human children played with the children of a dozen species. They laughed together, ran together, dreamed together. They did not see enemies or allies, conquerors or conquered. They saw only friends. Elder Mavis watched them from a nearby bench, her ancient heart full of something she had not felt in 1,000 years. Hope. The precursors had warned the galaxy about humans. They had told them to let humanity sleep. But the precursors, for all their wisdom, had not understood everything. They had not understood that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is also the most beautiful. And sometimes being woken up is exactly what the galaxy needs. The humans were awake now. And they were going to change everything, not through conquest, through something far more powerful, through love.